Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Bull. This is actually kind of like a bittersweet, yet beautiful episode. Like, I like how it seemed like it's two separate stories happening at the same time, but obviously they end up converging like that, so I thought it was kind of nicely done. Because on one side of things, you kind of have this, like, story about, like, this, guy, Jeffrey Schreiber. He stole a painting that technically doesn't belong to him. It technically belongs to a museum. The sad thing about it is, because I like what Bull was trying to do with the situation of being like, hey, you'll own ownership to it. He'll hold on to it, but the moment he dies, it comes back to you. But you'll be the ones who own it the entire time. He'll just be the one that possesses it kind of in that right, because he has no intentions of trying to sell the painting, because apparently, like, he's very wealthy off anyway, but it's just because for him, he wants to keep the painting because it's sentimental, because his ex-wife recently passed away, Melanie. The thing is, they were divorced for a while, but eventually they came back together. It's just kind of like bouncing back and forth between Germany and here. Half of his life was here, other half was in Germany, but all of Melanie's life was here, so it led to like a complicated thing, just that distance kind of grew their relationship apart. But in the past 5 years, they reconnected. Everything was good, and they won't even get married again, but sadly cancer took her, and it's just kind of a shame. And now it's like he wants to keep the painting, but the painting was promised to the museum. But he's saying, like, no, she said I could get it. It's like the last piece I have left to remember her. But, like, once again, like, the museum's come at it from a perspective of, like, no, this is what it says. Like, we're following the law. Like, it might seem a little cruel, but we're following the law simply because the fact of the matter is she gave it permission to, like, when she died, it come to us. So for them, it's also about the fact of the matter is it's a priceless painting, so it being there will garnish a lot of attention for the museum, so there's that aspect of it. But it's still that thing of, like, you wish they could be a little more flexible with it, which is interesting because it also ties into the other aspect of the episode, which is all the whole Gabriel situation. I kind of let that slip my mind. I mean, to be fair, it's been like 2 weeks since the previous episode, so I let that slip my mind that that's where we had left off with Gabriel and Danny, that whole reveal about his situation. But he ends up getting caught by immigration, which is sad, because Danny was trying to warn him. He was actually running before they caught up with him and everything. And it sadly turns into that thing of, like, he ends up telling a story about, like, the fact of the matter is in his country, it wasn't always like that. It was a great place. He was happy to be where he was, had friends, a good job, a good life. But then things changed, and they started coming after people who were basically in positions where they could be educated and smart enough to position that they might turn against the current running regime, and so they started killing people like that. He even talks about a friend of his that was dragged out in the middle of the night, snatched up, and publicly executed in front of his own wife and child and a whole bunch of people, and that's potentially where he can get sent back to. And I thought it was kind of neat, it's kind of crazy to think about the whole him and Danny situation, because it's just kind of like where they started at, and there's a beauty to it in a way, because it's like they were brought together by Cable's death. I know that's super dark and depressing, but it's like something good came out of the situation. And I think that's another reason probably why Danny's taking this even harder, not only just because she loves him. Like, the fact of the matter is this relationship came about when she was at, a low point. She lost, like, a good friend of her, not only a colleague, but a close friend, someone she most likely considered family. And it's just like, and now, like, that person is kind of potentially being taken away from her. So that's another, like, heaviness to that, I think. I didn't even think about that until just now of what, like, that relationship might have meant for her. It kind of gave her some, being with him, because he's also connected to, Cable, so it gives her some kind of closure being with him too, because it's almost like being connected with Cable still in some shape or form. It's almost like some grand, destiny or something. Like, it's like it brought them together over the whole Cable situation, which I guess, like, I guess it was, if you want to think about it outside of the show, it was written specifically for that point, I think. But it's just kind of interesting to sit here and think about it. But because the sad thing is, no matter what, and I didn't even know this, like, apparently with immigration, like a situation like that, apparently you're not given a court-appointed lawyer, which I thought was kind of very interesting, because typically that's the thing of, like, no matter what your circumstances are, you always get a court-appointed lawyer. Granted, doesn't mean they're going to be the best lawyer, but it's just kind of like he was kind of on his own during that situation, but Danny, unwilling to kind of let him go, wasn't going to let him go back to this country to potentially be killed or locked up. got Benny to join in. So it's balancing the other case they got while also working on this one. Bull's mainly there for Gabriel's case. Chunk is the one kind of taking third seat, second seat, I guess, more promptly to say in this situation in the Schreiber situation. So there's that angle to it. Because a sad situation about Gabriel's situation with the judge in this case, it's like the fact of the matter is you kind of hate the judge, because you can understand why Danny's is pissed, because for her it's like he's not willing to even kind of look at the gray area of the situation. Like the fact of the matter is it's a complicated situation, but he's so black and white where it's just he's kind of so stuck in his own ways, and it's just kind of like things are so black and white, but it's like the world doesn't work like that. But for him it's like, no, this is the law and stuff like that. And it's like, once again, it's always that situation I always have to ask myself, if it wasn't like a situation where you're invested in characters, like if it was a different circumstances, would you feel the same? I mean, because we know his story, and I'm not saying he's the only one that has a story like that. A lot of people do. Like, gave his money all to this lawyer who promised to give him everything that he can kind of basically continue his livelihood here in the U.S., but didn't, and basically gave him all his money, and the guy ended up giving him a visa that only lasted 2 weeks. So it's just it's a sad story, and just where he's coming from. If he goes back, he'll die. But it's like, nothing, that's the complicated thing about the law. The law is what it is, but it's just kind of like, you wish there was a lot more wiggle room in it in some regards. But you're like, if it has the wiggle room, then it's a whole thing. Like, I'm not trying to say I'm the person that knows how to fix everything. I'm not trying to, obviously I'm talking from the perspective of this episode because I don't know the ins and the outs of the law. So, but the fact of the matter is, it's that human side of you that wants things to kind of be more fluid. But in that regard, it's kind of like, this is the rules. You kind of have to follow the rules. But I love what they were trying to do with Danny, where they're trying to get like Danny as an FBI agent to talk on his behalf. And it's like, yeah, considering his situation, he knew revealing himself, he hid how smart he actually is, how capable he actually is. But that moment that guy in the restaurant was in danger, he stepped up. He did something he knew would get him in trouble. It would get him revealed, but he did it anyway. Because in that moment, it's like, hey, this guy's life is more important than, my circumstances right now. So that didn't matter as much to him. It's like, this guy needs help. And the guy even came to court, on the stand to be a witness, to be like, yeah, thanks, that guy, I'm able to be with my family, so I'm always going to be grateful. And it's like, let this guy stay here. Gabriel, Danny was saying about Gabriel, like, let him stay here. He can bring so much to this country. Obviously, she's being respectful because Bull is trying to get her to, kind of let her anger go and put it all towards this, because if she can sway the judge's opinion, and maybe she was close to swaying his opinion until the other guy was like, yeah, but he break the law. She was kind of reluctant to answer, and he was like, okay, so he pulls back his question, and then he just gets up, but the judge is like, no, sit down. I didn't excuse you. I'm like, I get it. Yeah, you didn't excuse her, but it's almost like he's power tripping, because it's just kind of like, it's like you want to force this situation. It's kind of like, because it's a situation where it's like, I feel like a judge really normally wouldn't do a situation like that. You forcing a question on a witness is kind of like if someone, on the lawyer side of things, ask the question. I feel like judges usually only respond to be like, oh, you're not answering. The lawyer asked you a question, you have to answer. But I feel like under those circumstances, judges typically do that in just their own regard of like forcing you to answer the question, even though the lawyer in this regard backed away from it. So I don't know. It seemed a little douchey and power trippy, but maybe he's in his rights that it's not that crazy. I just feel like I've never really seen it in this regard. Maybe the comparisons I'm trying to make between like, oh yeah, you will answer what the lawyer asked you, or like the judge forcing a question upon them. It's like, I guess it's the same thing in some regards. I look at it as two separate things, but maybe in the eyes of the law and just how everything operates, it's exactly the same. So it kind of, I don't know, it just, like I said, it just seems a little douchey. But at the same time, it's just, like I said, he's coming from the perspective of like, oh yeah, this is the law and everything, but it still doesn't make the situation suck any less. I do love that, Gabriel and Danny did try to get married. It's like, oh, is this actually going to work out? It's like almost did, because I love that Gabriel was like, come on. Like, they typically ask questions during these situations. He's like, I don't know much about your family. I don't know what your favorite food is. And she's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Don't worry about it. Also, we should not be having these conversations while we're here. But they get the licensing they need to do it. But there's like a 24-hour period before they can get married. But they maybe if Danny had jumped to this sooner, maybe things would have been different. But it was just kind of like a last ditch effort. She didn't know for sure, so because it's an obligation that was going to put them through a lot of stress going forward because of like validating their marriage and stuff like that. I don't know. Like the judge wouldn't have been able to do anything because legally that marriage would have been binding, but I don't know how. I would have been so interested to see how he would have reacted under those circumstances, because even for him it's like, see, the fact of the matter is he broke the law, and if we don't follow the law, the fact of the matter is kind of saying like, where's the self within the nation? It's like, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what someone can bring to the country. If they break the laws, that means they've already kind of, his way of looking at it, it's like you understand, but it's just kind of like, it's just, I don't know, it's just, like I said, sad circumstances all around. So it seemed like there was kind of no hope for Gabriel. But luckily everything worked out in Jeffrey's case. He was luckily able to take the painting, because it's like, oh yeah, like Melanie had set up this situation to get like the framing of it replaced, because she knew it was something Gabriel didn't want. But because she was in a state, like before the end, her cancer got worse, and so she wasn't in a condition to really act upon anything, so a lot of that kind of fell on the wayside. But the work order was already there, it was paid for, and it was supposed to be delivered to Jeffrey's place, so meaning he wins in the end. So I thought that was kind of pretty nice. So there's a victory in that regard, kind of a loss in the other regard, until for Gabriel to go to Frankfurt with Schreiber and get like get asylum there. So now he doesn't have to go back to his own country and potentially be in danger. Granted, I'm still not 100% sure. I mean, granted, I'm sure that's going to be an issue in itself, but I guess this is kind of meant to be like, I don't think it's going to be a situation where he can come. Maybe he can. Maybe I don't fully understand what they really did. I know they put him in a place where it's like, oh, he's got asylum there, so he's safe for now, so he doesn't worry about his own country. But it's like, is he only going to stay there long enough until they do what they need to kind of get him back in the States, to kind of get this running through the courts again? Or is he there permanently until he gets like a permanent residence there? But at the very least, it's not about going back to his original country. I feel like it's more so the former, but maybe it's a combination of the former and the latter. But either way, it's a sad situation, because obviously, like, yeah, and I love Danny being like, I hate you for not telling me. Because you could tell by the way Bull and Benny were acting, like, they're not telling him everything. And I love when they pop up, he's like, you have Gabriel being like, wait, is that a private jet? Like, am I getting on a private jet? He's like, yeah. Why, do you have a problem with private jets? And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, because I didn't know in what shape or form Jeffrey was helping out with this. So I was like, what can he do? Is like, is he in a powerful position? I mean, he's a very rich dude, but I guess it's like he has connections that allow for this to happen. Because I forgot what they said he exactly did. I think they brought it up earlier in the episode, but I didn't remember. So, but you had that moment of Danny being like, yeah, I hate you for not telling me, but I love you for doing it. And she lays in Gabriel's bed because obviously she's taking his heart. Like I said, it just maybe that reason I was bringing up earlier. Obviously, she's in love with him. There was something between them. I even love the whole like trying to lock in your face and your smell, because it'll probably be a while. She's like, don't get killed. Like, it breaks your heart because you see Danny literally tearing up, dude. I feel like you've never seen her over the course of the series like that. Like, the only time we've ever seen her like that, in my personal opinion, in my recollection, for the past now 3 seasons, only time we've ever seen her like that was about the Cable situation. So, like, obviously this meant a lot to her, so I'm very interested to see, whether this is the final chapter in that, or is this just kind of the midway point when it comes to the whole Danny and Gabriel situation. So it doesn't have the perfect ending you'd want it to, but there is a silver lining. So, like I said, I just thought it was kind of pretty neat, because it seemed like it was just 2 separate stories that were happening at the same time. Because it is that situation where Bull has kind of got caught up in stuff, like whatever else has happened in the episode, and the other case that he's supposed to be working on suffers. Like, that's stuff that's even happened this season. But the fact of the matter is, luckily when it's all said and done, like I said, everything kind of worked out in, to the best that they could under the circumstances. So I guess we can take that. So I thought, like I said, I like how it all weaved together like that. So I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good